All right, so good morning, welcome. I am Julie McConnell. I'm the horticulture agent here at this office, and I want to just kind of talk just a little bit about the University of Florida IFAS Extension, which is the Institute of Food and Agricultural Sciences. University of Florida has extension offices in all 67 counties within the state, and our if we drill it down, our basic role is science outreach. So we come out to the community, we do a lot of different kind of classes, we do things like this where we're in a classroom, we may do the garden tour, field days at our research centers. We also write a lot for newspapers and newsletters, and we do a lot of things on social media, like today, we're streaming this live on Facebook. And this is our Facebook page here, and it's in your handout, so don't feel like you got to write it down, we've got it for you, and if you need something emailed, we can also email it to you. So I mentioned that we have an extension office in all 67 counties, but we don't have all the programs or specialties in all 67 counties. It really depends on what the community needs. So here in Bay County, we have 4 agent positions with 4 program areas, or where we have kind of our own specialties. And Dr. Marjorie Moore does family and consumer sciences. Dr. Paula Davis is our 4-H agent, so she works with youth. And she also has a program assistant who is the Florida 4-H military coordinator, Janet Sakojis, who works with the military youth, which we have a lot of in this community. Sea Grant is Scott Jackson, and he is also a regional specialized agent for technology, so he is our tech support today. And then I do horticulture. So horticulture is ornamental plants, and that covers both like small fruits and vegetables and landscape plants, but I really am more specialized with the landscape side. I do a little bit with fruits and vegetables, but not a whole lot. It's not really my specialty. And I also do a lot of pest management. So there are a whole lot of people in this county. I think we have about 180,000 is the estimate. And a lot of people, when they try to grow plants, have issues. And I can't answer questions for all those people. So one of the most important parts of my job, or one of the most important support I get, is with the master gardeners. And we have a lot of master gardeners here. Would y'all raise your hands? So we have a lot of support here, okay? And right now I am recruiting for the master gardener class that we're going to have later this year. And master gardeners are volunteers, and they're trained volunteers. So they have to apply for the program. They get over 50 hours of training that first year. They have to pass an exam. They have to volunteer for 75 hours the first year, and then after that, that's when they certify as a master gardener. And then to remain a master gardener, they give a minimum of 35 hours a year of volunteer time, and they have to get 10 hours of continuing education. Okay, so when you call up here and a master gardener is there to answer your questions, this is not just someone who walked in the door and said, hey, I'm a really great gardener and I can do your job and I'll come in and help. They have dedicated a lot of time and effort into learning how to support the horticulture program. So, and they do events like this. I get to show up and talk for 10 or 15 minutes. They worked on advertising and putting packets together, creating programs. The reason we have our demonstration garden is because of the master gardeners. None of that would have happened without that volunteer workforce and that support for the community. So I'm just going to briefly mention some of the benefits of butterfly gardening, and I'm going to talk about the butterfly life cycle. And then I'm going to turn it over to the master gardeners, and they are going to really get down and dirty about specific plants and butterflies. And then if we have cooperation from the weather, we will go outside and look at the garden. So, you know, I think everybody in here kind of likes butterflies a little bit. Gardening? Okay, good. So I figured you kind of know you're going to attract wildlife, but in addition to the butterflies, you're really going to see a lot of other creatures that come to your garden. And when you put in a butterfly garden, you increase diversity with both the plants and the insects and even some other types of animals. And that's a good thing. When we have a monoculture, when we have just a mass of one plant, then if you have a problem, if you have an insect or disease problem or drought or some type of climatic occurrence, you can lose everything. So we like to have diversity in our landscapes. Once established, a butterfly garden is pretty low maintenance if you do it right, if you use that right plant, right place concept. Also, they're very pretty, you know, and they can be really a good thing to put into a tough spot. So if you have an area that maybe you've tried vegetable gardening or you've tried a lawn and it's just not working, this is something to consider. A clicker. All right, so some of the wildlife that you might attract, it's very common to attract hummingbirds to our butterfly gardens because a lot of the flowers that the butterflies are attracted to have that kind of tubular shape that the hummingbirds can feed from also. Beneficial arthropods. So I know a lot of people think of insects negatively, but there are a lot of jobs that they have. And so it's really, really important to attract other types of not only insects, but spiders and some other creatures like that. Some of the mammals you may have tend to get, somebody say rats. A rat is a mammal, that's correct. And I'm usually not trying to attract rats to my landscape, but you know what? Everything plays a role, so maybe that's okay. But I think I usually see, you know, kind of more of maybe the little squirrels and other types of, you know, prettier rodents that might come and feed on some of the seeds or feed on some of the insects that are in there. And of course the birds, we get a lot of birds in our butterfly gardens, both the hummingbirds, but also the ones if you leave the seed heads on, they'll come and visit and take advantage of that. And then reptiles. So lizards, they're good, they eat insects and keep things down. It's all part of diversifying your landscape. So here's a couple of pictures. On the left-hand side is a predatory stink bug, and I took that picture in my garden. I always grow purple passion flower vine, and we have some of those back there today for door prizes, or how are we giving those out? If you really want to see the entire life cycle of a butterfly, that's a fantastic plant to have in the landscape. It's very easy to grow, it's very forgiving, it's a native plant. Now it's a vine, so you have to give it room to run, and it might pop up here and there, so just have that in mind. But every year I get a ton of Gulf fritillary butterflies that visit. And they're not shy butterflies. They will come up and be within 12 inches of me and lay an egg where I can see it. I have a 10-year-old daughter, and she loves to go out there with me and watch the butterflies and count caterpillars. And we know they're going to eat the plant because that's why they're there. So we were out there counting caterpillars one morning, and I saw kind of something different out of the corner of my eye, and it turns out it was this guy. And I thought, oh, what are you doing there? And then it shot that mouth part out and stabbed a caterpillar and started drinking it. So that wasn't really what I wanted to see, but it was a good experience for my daughter to see that. She's not squeamish, which is good. But then he went into one of my insect collections and got shipped to Gainesville, so didn't get to stay there long. And then the spider, you know, that's very common that spiders will eat some of the butterflies. And spiders, they creep me out, I have to be honest. They're not my favorite arthropod, but they really do play a role. And again, ecological diversity, we really want to promote that. As far as low maintenance, now I really need to swap this picture out because this is from the Escambia County Extension Office. This is part of their butterfly garden, and really I need to swap it out with one of ours. But this was one where this is a very mature landscape. This has been in for a number of years, but pretty much what they do is, you know, they manage a handful of weeds and they refresh the mulch. And, you know, they may need to divide plants as they get bigger so they can share them, they can propagate them. You know, they do a plant sale every year, so that's something that they can do. But it's very visually appealing. It attracts a lot of wildlife, and it doesn't take a whole lot to maintain it once established. This is a picture of a rain garden. And a rain garden is an area where it alternates between wet and dry cycles. So you have to choose plants that can tolerate both of those conditions. And a lot of our plants that attract butterflies are really tolerant of those types of things. And Jody is going to go into incredible detail about plants and sites and butterflies. So I'm not going to stay on that for very long. So the butterfly life cycle, does anyone remember that from school growing up? Some of you? Okay. Complete metamorphosis. We have two major categories of the way that insects go through their life cycle. We have the complete and we have the incomplete. There's some other more complicated stuff, but those are the two biggies. And the butterflies go through the complete metamorphosis, which has 4 stages. We have the egg, the larvae, the pupa, and the adult butterfly. Okay? And one thing that's kind of neat about this compared to the incomplete is that, as you notice, the larvae and the adult don't look anything alike. But what you might not notice there is they have very different mouth parts, which means they feed on different things. So are they competing with each other? they're not competing with each other. So that's kind of a more advanced than, say, cockroaches and grasshoppers and stink bugs, where when you see a small insect, you look at it and you go, well, that's a baby grasshopper. Well, it really is, because it's feeding on the same thing that the adult is. So they're competing with each other at different stages of the game. And, insects tend to not be as nurturing as humans. It's kind of like all for one, one for all. So they're going to outcompete each other and not worry about the survival rates. So the eggs are very small, and sometimes they're laid singly, and sometimes they're laid in masses. This is what the Gulf fritillary butterfly egg looks like. And again, they will just come up and lay it on that passion flower vine with you standing right there. It's really, really fascinating. You can watch the abdomen just curl around and watch it happen. And what's important is where they lay their eggs. Butterflies, part of being a little more advanced is that they have specific needs for the caterpillar stage. So they won't lay their eggs on just any plant. Depending on the species of the butterfly, it's going to have a limited range of plants it will use as a host. So if you don't provide the plants for the eggs to be laid upon in your landscape, that's not to say that the butterflies won't visit your other flowers for a nectar source, but you won't have the reproduction there. So it's very, very attractive to the butterflies if they can come into a landscape and say, I can feed on nectar, I can lay my eggs here, there's some cover for the caterpillars to hide from predators. These are things that, again, I'm not trying to compare them to humans, but this is kind of their process, because the whole goal of the insect is to reproduce, right? So this is just another example of what the eggs look like. They're very small. Some of them look very translucent, so they might be difficult to spot. Then we have our larval stage, and this is very visual. A lot of times you don't see the caterpillar right away, but instead what you see is the damage on the plant, okay? And remember the book Hungry Caterpillar, or Hungry, Hungry Caterpillar, where you went through and it ate more and more and more? Well, the larval stage is a really important stage for the butterfly or for any insect, because it is gathering enough energy to change into an adult, whether it does it by going through the pupal stage or it just does it through multiple molts, like the incomplete life cycle insects do. Either way, the ultimate goal is become an adult, breed, lay eggs, move on. So they do eat a lot. This is the eastern black swallowtail caterpillars that were on parsley. Does anyone grow herbs? Yeah. So parsley is a host plant for several different butterflies, and I know Jody will talk about that a little bit more. But one thing is you want to keep in mind is try to have more than one plant, because when they show up, that's one that I get a lot of eggs. And this particular year, I had just one parsley plant in a container, and I went out one day and it was covered, absolutely covered in caterpillars, and I could see that they were going to eat everything really, really quickly. And I didn't have any more parsley in my landscape, and it just happened to be the time of year when, guess what, I couldn't find it anywhere. So I actually got in my car, I went to multiple garden centers, I even went to the grocery store looking for fresh parsley in the grocery store. I don't know if they would have eaten it. Couldn't find it anywhere. I was growing carrots at the time, and carrots are in the same family as parsley or somewhat related, so I cut the tops off and put them over, and I'm like trying to feed the caterpillars, and they just vacated. All they wanted was parsley growing in the ground. So I did not get to the next level with them that year, but it made me think, okay, when I plant parsley, I'm going to plant different stages, plant it, stagger it out the time, and put it in different areas of my landscape. So then, of course, we probably remember from grade school is when you get the chrysalis or the pupal stage, and the caterpillar goes into this. And I happened to catch this one on the left where it was just about to go. I was watching the big fat caterpillars, because you see them, they have all these different instars that they go through, they molt and get bigger and bigger and bigger, and then they get to the point where they're ready to form their cocoon or their chrysalis and make that transition. And so I caught this one hanging upside down and doing that little bit of a J shape. And then the next day I went out and it had started to form the chrysalis. So again, these are great science lessons if you have kids, okay? And in this stage, there's so much going on. I think a lot of us recognize these, better photographer pictures here of the monarch butterfly. I love that this photo you can see through, and you can see those wings form. And, sometimes I hear people say, oh, they go on the pupal stage, and it's like they're hibernating, they're resting, they're sleeping. And that is so far from the truth, because what's really going on is you've got that little worm-like caterpillar that could eat you out of house and home is turning into something with these long, slender legs and these big, beautiful wings. And even the mouth is changing from something that munches on leaves to a straw-like appendage that comes out and curls down and can feed on nectar in a flower. I mean, it's really fascinating what goes on in that stage. Okay. So when it comes out, so it's got that different mouth part, right? And then its primary focus is reproduction, wants to have the next generation, but it needs energy, right? So it just went through this major transformation. Well, you need to have nectar available for it. So that's why, again, you've got to have those diversified landscapes, and you need to make sure you've got a lot of different kind of flowers for them to choose from. So we want to stagger our bloom times, provide different colors and shapes. Different butterflies are going to have different length proboscis. So some of them are going to visit those tubular-shaped flowers that your hummingbirds like, and some of them, they can't do it. They wouldn't be able to reach it. So they're going to have a different mouth part. Also, some will hover over the flowers and some will land. So having a lot of different things is a good thing. This one here, and you can see, again, that tube-shaped flower, that would be very attractive to a hummingbird. Some butterflies also will feed on rotting fruit, and some even on decaying matter, like just the leaves that fall underneath plants and stuff, but most of them, the nectar is going to be a good draw. If you'd like to do this, you can, where you put some mashed up banana. You've got to change it out every couple of days, and it will attract some other insects, so just keep that in mind. All right, any questions? Yes?
The food plants for the caterpillars,
Yes.
they don't travel very far to the pupa. So
That's right.
The host plants for the caterpillar service pupal stage host plants as well.
Right, that's a good question. So what he asked was, where do they go to pupate? So you have the caterpillars on the host plant. Sometimes you can find them on the host plant itself, but sometimes they will go a little bit away from it, and that is just a survival mechanism, because you've got, especially you have those brightly colored caterpillars, and that's going to draw in some of the predators, and they don't want that chrysalis to be eaten. So sometimes I do find the chrysalis itself on my passion flower vine at the house, but I've also found it nearby on a chain link fence or on another bush, but not very far. You're right, they're not going to use a lot of energy to go clear across the yard. But if you have that diversity and you have another place where they can shelter and hide, and where they think this is going to be a safe place for me to go into this really vulnerable state where I can't get away from anything, then that's another reason to have that layering and stuff that Jody's going to talk about.